Okay, welcome back. We're going to take up where we left off. We covered Aries through Cancer in the last video. Now we're going to do Leo through Scorpio and the environments that these zodiac signs rule. Okay? So, to begin with Leo, Leo rules forests, woods, and jungles, places where wild cats would roam. Of course, Leo is the sign of the lion. So any place where lions or wild beasts of prey are going to roam. Gemini describes Leo as the sign of wild beasts of prey. And also, it is useful to note this even when it comes to like zoos or a wildlife sanctuary. So even a place where there is a raptor sanctuary, there's one up further up the coast in South Carolina where you can go and visit hawks and birds of prey that are kept there and rehabilitated. Even that would probably, I haven't tested this, but I'm willing to bet that's a Leo environment. Um, so when we talk about forests, Taurus was also given the dominion of forests. So forests that are ruled by Taurus are going to be more gentle, more Venusian forests, more domesticated forests. Forests that are sort of marked by some sort of human involvement. So even hiking trails, if you're going on a hiking trail, that's more of a Taurus environment. Leo would rule the forests that are more like raw and even maybe scary, but just the raw natural forests and jungles, like where yogis like to go and dwell to get away from the world and to be able to meditate in solitude. Like the great Shiva Puri Baba, who went into the jungle for some 40 years to be alone just to meditate until he got self-realized. People like that usually have a very, very strong sun and solar Agni and solar influence. So it's also kind of fitting that you see that sort of thing happen with yogis. You need definitely quite a lot of fire and solar yang type energy to be that type of, to have that type of spiritual path. And so the Leo environment of jungles is a really is a pure environment, is a raw environment, is a sattvic environment. Maybe this is why yogis like to escape to the jungles. As we know, Leo is a sattvic sign, one of the signs that helps us stay inspired, is conducive to the spiritual life. Leo can also rule military bases and fortresses and castles of various kinds. And that makes sense because Leo rules our kingdom, but Leo is also a military sign as well. Sagittarius can rule armories, military places where weapons are stored. Looking at my notes here, you should always keep some journals and write this stuff down. So yeah, Leo rules our kingdom. Whatever that is for each individual, that's going to be different. So if you run a restaurant, then in a sense, Leo rules your restaurant, right? Because that's your kingdom. So also Leo would of course rule the White House or a king's quarters, just like how Cancer ruled the queen's quarters. Yeah, Leo is said to rule places where hunters and kings dwell. So that sort of fills you in more. Even hunters, people who live off of wild game and things, they may have a lot of planets in Leo, or you might find the Leo connection there, or any place like that. So woods that are set aside for people to hunt in, those would be Leo-ruled woods, I guess. Unless they're really, not giving a very good, fair chance for the animals, then it would be more of a Taurus thing, like what we were talking about. So also Leo rules the place where the top eminent person in a field is dwelling. So, Leo would rule, like say in the 90s in basketball, Michael Jordan was the king of basketball, so Leo would rule Michael Jordan's home, in this context because he is the king of basketball. And in another sense, Leo has a little bit of a say on the United States, as the United States is sort of king, the nation of all the nations in the world. I'm not saying this because I like that or have any personal say in the matter, but that's just the way it is. Our military is kind of obnoxiously, too much more than any other nation when you look at the graphs and the numbers and things. And so, in respect to mundane affairs, Leo Rossi actually has a say on the United States. And Rahu is about to move into Leo, and we're about to have a solar eclipse in the sign of Leo, and this eclipse is going to be cutting across the whole United States. So I and many astrologers are really curious to see what is going to happen coming up then. Um, it's very interesting. Also, another way you can interpret this is that when I see, because I deal with a lot of Indian clients, because most people don't even know what Vedic astrology is outside of India, and so I deal with a lot of Indian clients who might have immigrated to America. And when I rectify their chart, or when they're doing prajnas, or when I look at the transits of when they first came to America, I often find that their ruling planet or their Atmakaraka is crossing Leo, the sign of Leo, when they come to this country for the first time. That would also be more likely if the person is going to live in America for the rest of their life or the majority of their life. So if someone's just going to America and then going right back to India, that's maybe not going to be as significant. But if you're going to make America your new home country, I do see that happening a lot. I see the Leo Rashi getting activated. Okay, that'll do it for Leo. Virgo. So Virgo rules rolling hills and gentler mountains. So not the rugged, Rocky Mountains of Aries, but the more smoother, older, mellower mountains, like the Ozarks. That would be ruled by Virgo. Okay. The bases of mountains, more of the bases of mountains, where you get the Piedmont, what they call it, the Piedmont area, or the rolling hillside. That's more going to be ruled by Virgo. Even so, the base of the Appalachian Mountains is also a Virgo environment. And I also suspect, though I haven't been there, that the base of the Himalayas are also a Virgo environment. Maybe someone who's watching this who lives there could try to confirm this with astrology, but I think so. Really, Yavana Jataka gives grassy areas, so that's a lot of space, a lot of planet Earth. So, grassy areas, that kind of makes sense to me. I associate Virgo with, like a pasture, it's a sign of a young girl, innocence. It reminds me of like picnics. I don't know. So grassy areas. It says also places of women and craft making. So that makes a lot of sense. Like women's schools, I would think would particularly be ruled by Virgo, since Virgo is a sign of young girls. Places where young girls would be, more likely or more prominent. Craft making, so that's a major one. Virgo is a major sign of crafts. Mercury's all about crafts. So crafting, that's a workshop, someone's little craft shop or craft area of their house. That would be ruled by Virgo. So if you've lost an item and it says it's in a Virgo environment, then you might need to check your craft area. Okay. One example of this is that there was one year that my Atmakaraka and ruling planet was crossing the sign of Virgo for that whole year, and then during that year I did happen to travel a lot more than I ever did normally through up into Asheville and to Georgia and back and forth. I went up from Charleston, South Carolina, up to Asheville, then to Atlanta, and then down to New Orleans, and then back to Atlanta, back up to Asheville, and then back down to Charleston. And I went to Asheville 5 times total. So that was just once, but I went at least 5 times total that year. So I was up there a lot when my ruling planet crossed through Virgo, and a lot of important events happened during that time in that area. And then another example of this is that a friend of mine has his Atmakaraka and his moon in Virgo in the Rashi chart and in the Navamsha chart. And he has lived in that area his whole life. He grew up in Columbia, and then he's lived in Asheville, and then outside of Atlanta, and then that's his whole, pretty much all of his dwelling environments his whole life has been in the Piedmont areas, the rolling hills like I'm talking about. So that's kind of a cool example to let you know how this works.